Welcome to a blustery midsummer afternoon at the Berrymead Community Garden in Acton, where I'll be repotting a donated olive tree using these donated secateurs from Bulldog. The olive tree is not in bad nick. I'm just going to be giving it a quick tidy up before we repot it. The soil is a bit shallow, but it does mean the pot has loosened its roots. So it shouldn't be too difficult to repot. If you do repot something that's established, especially if it's in a terracotta pot, it might be good to actually break the pot rather than trying to pierce or saw out the roots of the olive, and then leave it in a bit of water to loosen up for a while. So what we have here is some compost mix, a homemade, which is a mix of soil from the beds in Berrymead. So it's got the soil that's got the micronutrients from the rain and the mini beasts, the soil organisms that will be inhabiting the local area, which will help establish. It's also got some leaf mould, which is created from the trees surrounding. So it's got a key into the new home. We're going to add some gravel, as olives need free draining soil. We're also going to use some of the gravel at the end as a top dress, so that the olive has something to keep the moisture in, but also reflect the heat. We've also got specific olive tree feed, so it's got the balance of nutrients it needs to start off, and we're going to top that up just so we get a good balance, along with the leaf mould and the clay soil, which has the nutrients that it will need to adapt to. It will also have the mainly Mediterranean style mix. Okay, so first things first, prune off anything that you think may end up allowing some disease in. Anything that looks like it is growing in a fashion a bit weaker than the others. Olive trees often have a lot of crossing branches, and it's not something that I mind particularly, so I'm going to leave them on there. But somebody has tried to prune this previously and left a few stubs, so I'm just taking them off. Now when it gets a bit bushier, I would probably thin it out so that there's some light going towards the stems and the leaves that may fruit. We may end up staking this a bit later on in a few years' time to try and allow the canopy to open out. Oh, there's a few more there. We've got a saucer that contains some of the small stones and stabilise it. I'm going to do a few scoops of this and then mix in some bone meal so that the roots can establish. It's very sandy soil, which is very good for the olive tree, so it should be free draining. One thing I would avoid is putting heavy manure in with an olive tree, as you don't want it too nutrient rich, too water retentive. So when you're putting in bone meal, you just want to pinch really, and you want to mix it in with the soil or with the compost so that it doesn't burn the roots when you put the tree in. On the ground, tease out the roots a little bit. It's a little bit wet for my liking, that soil. Hopefully the new stuff we're putting on will like a bit more than that. Tuck the roots back in, that'll prune some of these out. Okay, we're almost done. It's got a nice initial space. We'll probably end up repotting this in a year to a slightly larger pot. Hopefully you'll have a lovely lush green canopy with some fruity olives. So we're going to put the top dress of the same stones on them. Now the fact that it's over to one side, I quite like actually. It's the root mass has stabilised it. So the fact that it's over to one side, I think, gives it a little bit of character, a bit of a kind of a bonsai-ness to it. So I'm not going to try and attempt to root prune and move it over into the centre. I'm going to keep it growing on one side of the pot. Very English weather this. There's some snippets of sun and then some rain and then some wind. So hopefully the olive tree doesn't get too fed up. Actually forgot to put in the feed. So if, as in my case here, you forget to put the olive feed when you're actually putting the plant into the main area of the compost. Because it's granule feed, you just move some of the stones out of the way, mix it in with the top of the compost, and then as you water it, it will dissolve into the soil and gradually feed the plant. So luckily, in this case, it's not an issue at all. Or you can buy some liquid feed, in which case you never have to worry about it. It's just a handful is enough to get the plant started. You don't want it too rich. You don't want the plant bolting suddenly and then flopping over, or the leaves growing too much. You want good balanced healthy growth, and you especially want the roots to start off here. So place the stones and give it a feed probably in the growing season, so from March until September I'd be feeding every 3 weeks. I think if you were trying to produce fruit you would be using a potash or a potassium feed every week, but that's not really what we're trying to achieve here. It's more about the aesthetics of the plant. So grab me watering can. And being an olive, it doesn't need a lot of water, but to establish it does need a good drink to dissolve the feed and get the roots going, connecting with the soil. There we go, we can see it's a nice free draining mix. I might even name him after one of our apprentices. easily enough waterproof. I'd just like to say a big thank you to Gareth from London Wildlife Garden in Acton. It's just off Avenue Road. He does open garden, the RHS, I think it's the RHS. It's the National Garden Scheme every year. So if you get a chance, I'll check him out. He's got an amazing wildlife garden. A big thank you to Gareth for donating this and other things to the community garden, and to Bulldog for providing us with the secateurs.